My name is Linda J. Cornett, and I am 28 years old. My boyfriend said, I want to see other people. After 2 years together, I said, understood. Then I started dating his best friend. He panicked. Wait, that's not what I meant. But I was already gone. We'd been together just over 2 years. Lived together for 1. Nothing dramatic on paper. No cheating scandals. No screaming matches. No broken plates. Just a slow build of him acting like he was auditioning for something better while I was already cast as the boring constant. That night, he was leaning against the counter, scrolling on his phone, sighing loudly like he wanted me to ask what was wrong. I didn't. I was tired. Work had been long. And honestly, I'd learned that asking usually led to some speech about how he felt stuck or uninspired lately, like his restlessness was something I was supposed to fix for him. He finally looked up and said, I've been doing a lot of thinking. That's never a good sentence. He said he loved me, but it came out the way people say no offense right before saying something offensive. Then he crossed his arms and said, I think I want to see other people. No pause, no tears, just that, like he was asking to switch phone plans. I asked what that meant exactly. He rolled his eyes and said I was being dramatic already. According to him, he didn't want to break up. He just wanted options, space, validation to know he still had it. He actually laughed when he said that last part. I remember nodding slowly, more out of surprise than understanding. He kept talking, explaining how this was normal, how lots of couples do this, how I should be confident enough to handle it. He even said, if you're really secure, this shouldn't bother you. That's when something in me went quiet. I didn't argue. I didn't negotiate. I didn't ask for rules or boundaries. I just said, understood. He looked almost disappointed, like I'd skipped the part where I was supposed to beg or panic. He smirked and said, see, I knew you'd be mature about it. What he didn't realize was that understood was an agreement. It was the moment I stopped being his. The weird thing is, nothing exploded after that conversation. He went back to his phone like he'd just asked me to pick up milk on the way home. I stood there for a minute longer than necessary, then went into the bedroom and shut the door. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was heartbroken, but because my brain kept replaying his tone, casual, certain, like he'd already decided how this was supposed to go, and assumed I'd follow the script. The next morning he acted almost cheerful, made coffee, hummed, asked if I wanted eggs. When I didn't answer right away, he said, don't make this weird, okay? That sentence pissed me off more than the night before, because it was the first proof that he wasn't offering freedom. He was offering a new rule and expecting me to comply without emotion. Over breakfast, he laid out his expectations like he was delegating tasks. We'd still live together, still split rent, still go to events as a couple for appearances, but he'd be free to talk to people, go on dates, see what's out there. He emphasized that I shouldn't rush into anything myself because women get attached too easily. He actually said that. I asked if he had someone in mind. He scoffed and said, God, no, why do you always assume that? Then he checked his phone under the table and smiled at a notification. I didn't push it. I just nodded and said I had to head to work. At lunch, my phone buzzed. A text from him. Just so you know, I might stay out late tonight. Don't wait up. No love you, no explanation. That's when I realized this wasn't about exploration or growth or whatever buzzword he'd found. This was about leverage. He wanted the safety of me and the excitement of everyone else. He wanted to feel chased without risking being alone. That afternoon, I didn't work much. I sat at my desk and quietly started untangling my life from his in my head. What was shared? What wasn't? What could be separated cleanly? Because something else was forming underneath the calm. Something he hadn't noticed yet. I wasn't panicking. I was preparing. By the end of that week, he fully leaned into his new personality. Not a breakup glow-up. More like entitlement with a fresh haircut. He started coming home later, tossing his keys louder than necessary, announcing things I didn't ask about like he was narrating a show. Mark from work bought me a drink, he said one night, kicking off his shoes. Don't worry, though, he's not my type. I didn't ask who Mark was. He watched my face anyway, like he was waiting for something to flare. Another night, he spent 20 minutes getting dressed just to run errands. Came back smelling like cologne that definitely wasn't his. When I raised an eyebrow, he snapped, You said you understood. Don't start policing me now. Understood. He treated it like a signed contract. Like one word from me had granted him a permanent license. What really got under my skin was how he started testing me. He'd casually mentioned how someone flirted with him, then paused to watch my expression. When it didn't land, When I didn't get jealous, his eyes would narrow, like my lack of reaction was disrespectful. "You're being weird," he said on Saturday morning, standing in the kitchen with his coffee like he was holding court. "Most women would care." I shrugged. "You wanted honesty. This is it." He rolled his eyes and muttered something about me being emotionally checked out. That was rich coming from a man actively shopping for replacements while still expecting my side of the bed to stay warm. I tried not to spiral in front of him. I refused to give him the performance. But inside, something shifted. It wasn't heartbreak. It was the slow, sharp realization that this wasn't a phase for him. This was a preference. He wanted to be wanted by everyone and still come home to someone waiting, someone predictable, someone who wouldn't force him to confront what he was doing. That afternoon, he left the apartment for a casual hang that apparently required a full outfit change and a fresh layer of cologne. The apartment felt lighter without his energy filling every room. I didn't miss him. That surprised me more than anything. Around 11, my phone buzzed. "You okay? You've been really quiet today." I stared at it for a long time before replying. "Yeah, just processing." He reacted with a thumbs up, like I'd just told him I'd take care of the trash. That's when I knew it. This wasn't a negotiation for him, but it definitely wasn't one for me either. I started noticing the details I'd ignored for months, how he'd make decisions and inform me afterward, how he'd correct me in front of his friends like it was normal, how he'd praise me for being low maintenance whenever I swallowed something that should have been addressed. I had mistaken my adaptability for love. He had mistaken it for permission. At work, I found myself making lists without meaning to. Not dramatic lists, quiet ones. What accounts were shared, what subscriptions were in his name, what bills I paid automatically, what items in the apartment were mine, what documents I needed to move somewhere safe if things turned ugly. I hated that my brain had started operating like this, like I was planning an escape from someone who claimed he loved me. But every time he came home with that smug ease, every time he tossed me crumbs of information like I should be grateful he was honest at all, the planning felt less paranoid and more necessary. That Tuesday, he was running late for something he called a casual thing, and apparently nothing about it was casual. He was pacing the bedroom, complaining that nothing fit right when his phone buzzed on the bed. He was in the bathroom when I saw the screen light up. A message preview from Lily. "Are you sure you're okay with all this?" I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. The preview was enough. When he came out, he grabbed the phone too fast. Not subtle. He glanced at me, sharp, like he was checking whether I'd noticed. I just picked up my keys and said I was heading out. "To where?" he asked. "Out," he scoffed. "Wow, real communicative." I smiled slightly. "Why does it matter?" That did it. His jaw tightened. "Because this arrangement only works if we're transparent," he said, like he was quoting something he'd read online. I let him talk himself in circles until he finally said, "I just don't like feeling like I'm losing you." That was the moment. Not because it hurt, but because it clarified everything. He didn't care about us. He cared about control. He wanted to roam and still have me anchored in place. That night, I met a friend for a drink. No flirting, no drama, just noise and normal conversation. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. When I got home, he was already there, sitting on the couch with his arms crossed like he'd been waiting to interrogate me. "You didn't answer my texts," he said. I checked my phone. 2 messages, both sent less than an hour ago. "I was busy," I replied. "With what?" he pressed. I looked at him and kept my voice calm. "Does it matter?" He stared at me like I'd broken the rules. Then he launched into a speech about respect, about how this only worked if we were open with each other. Open. Funny word, considering he only wanted openness when it benefited him. I didn't argue. I didn't defend. I just listened. And while he talked, I felt the last piece of uncertainty settle. He thought I was in standby mode. I wasn't. I was leaving. That afternoon, his best friend Lily came over. Lily had been around our entire relationship. Movie nights, birthdays, inside jokes I was never fully part of. He always said Lily was basically family, which in hindsight should have been a warning. She knew his moods, his cycles, when to joke, when to disappear, when to soothe. I'd always been polite with her, friendly in that surface-level way you are with someone you see often but never quite trust. He disappeared into the shower almost immediately, leaving Lily and me alone in the living room. The silence stretched long enough to feel intentional. She sat on the far end of the couch at first, then shifted slightly closer, not touching me, just enough to acknowledge the space between us. "So," she said finally, carefully, "how are you holding up?" I laughed once, quiet and dry. "I'm fine. She studied my face longer than necessary, not invasive, assessing, like she was seeing me clearly for the first time. "He can be a lot," she said. That was the first crack. I didn't respond, but something in her expression softened. It felt unfamiliar, like she was looking at me as a person instead of an extension of him. When he came back into the room wrapped in a towel, hair damp, he froze when he saw how close Lily and I were sitting. Not close in any real way, just close enough to register. "Why are you sitting there?" he snapped at her. Lily raised an eyebrow. "Because it's a couch." He shot me a look, sharp and accusing, like I'd orchestrated something by existing. Lily didn't move. She didn't apologize. That alone felt like a small rebellion. Later that night, after Lily left, he accused me of acting distant in front of her friends. I told him calmly that I was matching the energy he'd set. He didn't like that answer. He went to bed angry, turning his back to me like it was punishment. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing slow, and finally let myself admit what I'd been avoiding. He wanted me waiting. He wanted me still, and I was already gone. He just didn't know it yet. Things shifted the following Tuesday. He was running late for something he called a casual hang, which apparently required a full outfit change and a makeup redo that took longer than any date we'd gone on together in months. He was pacing the bedroom, complaining that nothing fit right when his phone buzzed on the bed. He was in the bathroom when I saw the screen light up. "Lily, are you sure you're okay with all this?" I didn't touch the phone. I didn't need to. The preview was enough. When he came out, he grabbed it too fast. Not subtle. He glanced at me, eyes sharp, checking whether I'd noticed. I just picked up my keys and said I was heading out. "To where?" he asked. "Out," he scoffed. Wow, real communicative. That night, I met a friend for a drink. No flirting, no confessions, just normal conversation and background noise. And for the first time in weeks, my chest didn't feel tight. When I got home, he was already there, sitting on the couch with his arms crossed. "You didn't answer my texts," he said. "I was busy." "With what?" I smiled slightly. "Why does it matter?" That did it. He launched into a lecture about transparency, about respect, about how this arrangement only worked if we were open with each other. I let him talk until he finally said, "I just don't like feeling like I'm losing you." There it was. He didn't care about me. He cared about not losing his place. The next day, Lily texted me directly. "Hey, I hope this isn't weird. I just wanted to check in." I stared at the message longer than I should have before replying. "Honestly, it's not weird. I'm okay. Just figuring things out." She responded almost immediately. "You deserve better than being treated like a backup plan." I read that line 3 times. That night, he announced he'd be spending the weekend away with friends. He said it casually, like he was daring me to react. I told him to have fun. He frowned. "You don't even care, do you?" I didn't answer. The truth was, I already had plans, and none of them involved waiting around anymore. He left Friday morning with a suitcase that was way too big for a weekend. He kissed me on the cheek like he was doing me a favor and said, "Don't sulk while I'm gone." The door closed. The apartment went quiet. I didn't miss him. That surprised me more than anything. Saturday afternoon came and went without the usual static. No pacing, no checking the clock, no wondering when he'd text or what version of him would walk back through the door. I cleaned the apartment slowly, not because it needed it, but because touching familiar things without tension felt grounding. His absence wasn't loud. It was spacious. Around 2, my phone buzzed. Lily again. "Do you want to get coffee? Just as friends." I hesitated for maybe 5 seconds, not because it felt wrong, but because I wanted to be honest with myself about why I'd say yes. I wasn't looking to provoke him. I wasn't looking to replace anyone. I was just tired of pretending nothing was happening. I texted back, "Sure." We met at a small cafe neither of us had ever suggested before. Neutral ground. Smart. Lily looked different without him around. Calmer, less guarded, like she wasn't monitoring her tone or her posture. We ordered coffee and sat across from each other, sunlight cutting through the window between us. At first, we talked about normal things. Work, a show we'd both abandoned halfway through, a childhood story that made her laugh harder than expected. It felt easy in a way that surprised me. Eventually, she said it, carefully. "He doesn't mean to hurt people." I didn't interrupt. "But he also doesn't stop himself," she added, "and he hates when things don't revolve around him." That landed in a way that felt both validating and sad. I told her about the night he said he wanted to see other people, about how quickly he decided my feelings were an acceptable casualty as long as he got what he wanted. Lily listened without defending him, without minimizing it. She shook her head slowly. "He does that thing where he wants freedom, but only for himself." When we stood to leave, there was a moment, just a moment. Our hands brushed as we reached for our cups. Nothing dramatic, no spark fireworks, but it stayed with me the entire drive home. He came back Sunday night, loud and energized, dragging his suitcase through the hallway like he was announcing his return. He launched into stories about how much fun he'd had, who he'd seen, how late they'd stayed out. He didn't ask about my weekend. He didn't need to. He assumed nothing happened without him. Later that night, he scrolled through his phone and frowned. "Lily's been kind of distant," he said. "Weird, right?" I kept my voice neutral. "Maybe she's busy." He narrowed his eyes. "You didn't talk to her, did you?" I met his gaze. We got coffee. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. His tone shifted instantly. Cold, controlled. "So now you're crossing lines." I almost laughed. "You set the lines," I said. "Remember?" He stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stayed on the couch, calm in a way that would have terrified him if he'd noticed. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing. He didn't speak to me for 2 days after that. Not dramatic silence with slammed cabinets. Strategic silence. One-word answers. Avoided eye contact. Phone calls taken in the bathroom with the fan on. I watched it happen without engaging. Tuesday night, he finally broke. "Oh, so," he said, standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "Are you sleeping with her?" I looked up from my laptop, genuinely confused for a second. "Who?" "Don't play dumb," he snapped. "Lily." "No," I said calmly. "We got coffee." "That's emotional cheating," he fired back instantly, like he'd been waiting to use the phrase. "You wanted to see other people," I reminded him. "You said we shouldn't police each other." "And that's different," he said too fast. "She's my best friend." I closed my laptop and stood. "And I'm your girlfriend. Or I was. You didn't seem too concerned about that distinction." His face flushed. "I didn't say I wanted you replacing me." That was the most honest thing he'd said in weeks. He started pacing, spiraling now, talking about trust, loyalty, how Lily was probably always jealous of him, of us, of everything. I let him talk until he ran out of breath. "You're not upset because I crossed a line," I said finally. "You're upset because I didn't stay where you left me." He froze. The next day, Lily texted again. Short, careful, "I'm sorry if I caused problems." I replied immediately. "You didn't. I should have drawn boundaries sooner." She didn't respond right away. When she did, it was just, "I'm here if you need anything." That night, he tried a different approach. Charm. He cooked dinner, sat closer, touched my arm like muscle memory would do the work for him. "You know," he said lightly, "this open thing doesn't have to be permanent." I looked at him and finally saw it clearly. He didn't want freedom. He wanted me on standby. And for the first time since this all started, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't tell him what I was planning. I didn't announce a decision or give a warning speech. I just stopped treating his moods like weather I had to prepare for. Wednesday morning, I changed my direct deposit. That afternoon, I moved my important documents into my backpack. Thursday, I emailed the landlord to ask about my options. Every move was calm, methodical, final. He felt the shift before he saw it. He oscillated between icy silence and forced affection, like he was testing which version might pull me back into place. 1 minute, he ignored me completely. The next, he leaned against me on the couch and said things like, "You know, no one knows me like you do." I didn't respond. I wasn't punishing him. I was done negotiating. Friday night, he tried a different angle. "I told my mom about us," he said casually, watching my face. I looked up. "About what exactly?" He hesitated. "About everything. The open thing. She thinks you're being immature." I nodded slowly. That wasn't the reaction he wanted. He slammed his glass down. "Why are you acting like you don't care if I walk away?" I met his eyes. "Because you already did." That shut him up. Later that night, Lily called. Not texted, called. Her voice was quiet. "I'm stepping back from him for a bit," she said. "He's angry and he's blaming me for things that aren't mine to carry." I understood that feeling too well. "You don't owe anyone loyalty at the expense of yourself," I told her. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Sunday morning, he cornered me in the kitchen, voice sharp, eyes frantic. "Are you planning to leave me?" I took a second. "I'm planning to stop pretending this is a relationship." He laughed, brittle. "You'll regret this. You're not exactly a catch without me." That line would have crushed me once. Instead, it clarified everything. That afternoon, I packed a bag and left for the night. No argument, no explanation, just a note on the counter that said, "I'll be back tomorrow to get the rest." My phone blew up within an hour. Missed calls, angry texts, then panic, then, "We need to talk. This isn't what I meant." By then, I was already gone. When I came back the next afternoon, he was sitting rigidly on the couch like he'd been waiting for hours. Red eyes, defensive posture. "We need to set rules," he said immediately. No hello, no apology. I set my bag down. "Rules for what?" He stood and paced. "For whatever this is. You don't get to disappear and make me the bad guy." Panic wrapped in accusation. "I didn't disappear," I said evenly. "I left. I told you I would." "This got out of hand," he said. "That's not what I meant when I said I wanted to see other people." I waited. Let the silence do the work. "I meant casually," he continued. "Flirting, validation, not you actually moving on." There it was, finally out loud. "So when you said other people," I replied, "you meant other people for you." He threw his hands up. "Why are you twisting my words?" "I'm taking them seriously," I said. "You're really going to throw this away over a misunderstanding." I picked up a box and headed toward the bedroom. "It stopped being a misunderstanding when you got angry that I wasn't waiting." He cracked then. "You think Lily wants you," he snapped. "She's always lived in my shadow. This is just her trying to win." I turned slowly. "You don't get to talk about people like that." He laughed, harsh. "You don't actually think this ends with you happier, do you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I packed while he spiraled behind me. Accusations, guilt, sudden tears, promises that clearly hadn't been thought through. At one point he said, "If you leave, don't expect me to wait around." I looked at him. "You already didn't." By the time I carried the last box to my car, he was sitting on the floor with his phone, probably drafting messages he never thought he'd have to send. For the first time since this started, I felt completely free. I stayed with a friend for a few days, long enough for the emotional dust to settle. He didn't give me that courtesy. My phone kept lighting up like a malfunctioning alarm. Apologies stacked on top of insults. Voice notes swinging between tears and anger. One message stood out. "Can we please talk like adults? You're ruining everything." That was the moment I blocked him. Not out of spite, out of clarity. A day later, Lily reached out. One message. "I heard you moved out. Are you okay?" I told her the truth. "Yeah, I am now." We met again. No pretending this time. Dinner. Simple place. No tension. No performance. She told me he'd lost it when he realized I was actually gone, calling friends to rewrite the story before they heard it from me. She showed me a message he'd sent her during our dinner. "Tell her this isn't what I meant. I just wanted to feel wanted. She's taking it too far." I shook my head. "He never wanted to lose me," I said. "He just wanted to remind himself he could replace me." Lily nodded. "He never thought you'd walk." 2 days later, he tried one last time. New number, long message, softer tone, promises. "I'm ready to choose you now." That sealed it. I didn't respond. When someone says they're ready to choose you now, they're admitting they didn't before. It's been a few months. Life is quiet in a good way. No emotional audits, no tension humming in the background. He tried to circle back through mutual friends with lines I heard secondhand. "She didn't mean it like that. She was just going through a phase. She thought you were strong enough to handle it." Strength isn't swallowing disrespect. Strength is leaving the first time someone tells you you're optional. Lily and I took things slow. No dramatic announcement, no overlap that needed defending. Just honesty, calm, mutual choice. One night, weeks later, she showed me a message he'd sent her out of nowhere. I still don't understand how she could do this to me. I read it and felt nothing. Not anger, not smugness. Just done. He didn't panic because he loved me. He panicked because for the first time, his words had consequences he couldn't flirt or argue his way out of. He wanted to see other people. I said, understood, and I meant it, because understanding doesn't always look like agreement. Sometimes it looks like leaving and not looking back.